You are listening to Processing Trauma Out Loud, conversations about trauma and healing from two women who are doing the work.
Hey everyone, it's Kandace and Sher with Processing Trauma Out Loud. And today, Sher and I are going to bring you a bit of a different type of episode that Sher has affectionately named a summer chat. Sher and I have been on this healing journey together for, what is it now, Sher? Are we going into year 5?
We are in year 5, yep.
We are in year 5 of, I want to say, walking very closely together in our desire to heal from complex childhood trauma. How does that feel to you?
I was looking at the calendar earlier in June and I realized we were at the 4-year mark, and it just feels so good. I've been thinking a lot recently about how I have found my tribe. I have people in my life who know my story, like the ins and outs of my story, who are able to stay with me, who also have shared their story and allow me to stay with them. It's a tribe of people who understand complex childhood trauma, who really are desiring to engage well with one another in the highs and lows of what that means. And so I just love that we are in year 5 because, we have a lot of miles behind us now and a lot more to go. And I'm so grateful.
I hope there's something about our listeners gaining this perspective of this is a journey. I don't know what it feels like to a particular person to hear year 5. Oh my gosh, that feels like so long. And what I want to say about that is it is a journey. And yes, look at it this way. If you stub your toe, okay, you're going to heal probably pretty quickly. There are different levels of woundings that can take more time to heal. And so I hope people can release any pressure off of themselves to have to be at a certain point in time. And let's face it, like in the physical, there are some tragedies, car wrecks that leave people paralyzed that are so bad. There's a sense that their life will not be the same as before. Can we at least open up a little bit of space in the emotional realm, in the mental realm, that there's going to be some things for some people that are just kind of always going to be there. But yes, we can heal around it, grow around it, have more freedom around it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and all of that, and then still be dysregulated by it at times.
Yes.
Because our brain has, the neural pathways don't ever go away. So the old neural pathways that were the way that we did life for so long, they're still there. We've learned new ways and we can stay in those new ways and we love those new ways, but the old ways are there, and given the right conditions, which can be something so tiny that we don't even notice it, but boom, we can be back there struggling with something again. And so, yes, it's an ongoing journey. And I love the realization that is how that's life now. And it doesn't mean that I'm as immersed day by day as I was at first in the pain and in the grief and in the struggles, but sometimes that pain is acute. Sometimes it stays with me for a few days at a time, and as I'm working through something. And so, it's an ongoing journey, and I love that we can be comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm. What's coming up for me is this idea of choice. A lot of times we can see something or read something about, well, it's your choice. There's truth to that, right? That we have choices, we have options. Now, when we are in freeze mode or stuck and we're going back into a very young wounded place, that child did not have choices. And so when we encounter even our own triggers or somebody else's, one of the things that we can do is like, what are your choices right now? And you and I both know we can feel like, oh, I have choices, or we can see someone's facial expression that says, wait, what? There's choice here. And so I have so much compassion around somebody that's 30, 40, 50, 60, chronological age, that they're living in so much shame because they're hearing this message, well, you have a choice. Well, we actually don't have a choice to be triggered. We
Yep.
don't. Our body responds to certain stimuli. Now, the healing of trauma and the slowing down of what's going on underneath of that, then we start to slowly get empowered to like, oh wait, I have been triggered, but I now have options.
It's so true. And I think options like I can use my voice, or my voice matters, or my feelings matter, or forgiving and forgetting is impossible. I've been thinking about that one more lately. That still is so prevalent that I hear people say, I've just got to get over it. And I say, I think you can't just get over it. What if you can't just get over it? What if you have to process it? What if you have to look at what is true, what is real, what's going on in your soul? And I've been thinking about this, Kandace, and I would love to have a little chat about this. And that is, when we grow up in a situation where our feelings are gaslit, where we encounter a lot of dismissal and a lot of diminishment of, whether it's a skin knee or hurt feelings or something really huge, but where someone else tells us, oh, it doesn't hurt that bad, or oh, you're just fine, or oh, stop crying about it. Someone told me recently about a friend, and these are two adult men. And the person who I was talking to said, yeah, I have this friend, and he just complains about everything. He just complains all the time. And finally, I looked at him one day and I said, listen, man, nobody cares about your shit. I mean, sometimes, yeah, that chronic complainer, that can be tough. But it really struck me because I felt like I grew up with real pain at times. And I felt like the response that I got was nobody cares about your shit. And
Mm.
I think that I carried that for so much of my life. And I really was so struck when I started doing story group and people made a big deal about my wounds. And when I sat there and tried to diminish and say it wasn't that big of a deal, or somebody else had it harder, and I was looked at straight in the eye and said, no, your pain matters. This whole thing of being gaslit, I think it just has such a big effect that is ongoing for us.
For a young child, when you say gaslit, I'm going to give an example here because I just saw a beautiful exchange between my daughter and my 3-year-old grandson. We were driving somewhere and he said, Mommy, I want to go to Creations. It's this place. Well, that wasn't on the agenda for today. And she goes, I hear that you want to go to Creations, but we're going to the beach right now. And he kind of moaned, like, well, I want to go to Creations. And she goes, oh, I know. That's disappointing, isn't it? And I was like, here is a mother who understands mirroring, attunement, regulation. And she met him by saying, I see your disappointment. That's hard. I mean, that's what she said. I see your disappointment, and that's hard to feel disappointed. Now, here's what I want to say about that. We often think that when we meet a child in that place, that we are going to enable them to be whining or complaining, or we're giving them permission to just maybe have bad behavior at some point. But actually, when we meet a child with where they're at, and we acknowledge and we mirror and we have attunement for that emotion, it actually gives them the material, if you will, emotionally, mentally, to then be able to move on to the next thing, or to be able to say, oh, yeah, I am disappointed, but we're going to the beach. It's incredible, really. And I think if we don't understand, so I was listening to a podcast and this lady said, the more connected a young child feels, the more their experience of being connected and understood and seen, that is what creates healthy independence as they grow older. So if we're trying to get a child to be independent when they're young, or we're telling them how to feel, that actually creates more insecurity and unhealthy dependence when they're older. I know that was a lot, but
I love that though, but and I loved how you talked about how you said insecurity. It creates insecurity because as you were talking, I was thinking it creates a secure attachment.
oh, yeah.
Being validated, being contained, having somebody who can come and say, like, I see you right there in your pain and it's okay. And that is what creates healthy attachment, secure attachment. And when we don't have that, yeah, we're left in insecurity.
And the caveat here is, and we have to understand the nuances here. Meeting someone in their emotions and seeing them in a tuning is not the same thing as if they act out in a destructive way against themselves or others, that we allow that. No, we don't. We address it, but we can validate the emotion and set boundaries for the behavior that would come out of that. What was really sweet to me was noticing how my grandson easily transitioned. Well, that's because he's 3 years old. And for almost 3 years, he's been validated and seen and attuned to. So he wasn't too worried about not getting to do what he wanted in that moment.
And plus he was going to the beach, right? And
Right. Yes,
but
which he
it's
wanted to too.
but it's so true. Like, yeah, he even though he was going to do something fun, he had and I love how his mom didn't say, "Why can't you just be happy? We're going to do something great," but she took that 30 seconds to validate, "I know you feel disappointed and that's hard."
It,
And
it
how
was
often
it was
that's what we
beautiful.
need. Yeah, yeah.
I just had a little bit of a let's how do I want to call it? I felt this pain pop up in me. Like I wished I would have been able to do this with my children better. I feel I was on the positive, let's be thankful side, which I love positivity. I love being thankful, but not at the expense of gaslighting somebody's real experiences for how they feel.
Mhm.
Just listening to you say that, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I was a parent that leaned to, well, we could just ask my kids, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't that I didn't care about their feelings, and I know you feel the same way, but understanding what we understand now about attunement, I think we probably would have done some things differently.
For sure. And this goes back to our 5 years journey, even though and I mean we've been learning and growing and changing even before that. But like we didn't know. And when you don't know, you can't do. Like we did not really know how to attune well, not in this, really great way that your daughter is able to do. And yet we're learning now and we're implementing now and we're making changes now, which, then we could we could go ahead and talk about rupture and repair, right? Because, that's some of what we're doing with our adult kids now is we can go and talk about the things that, hey, I know I missed you a lot when you were a
Mhm.
kid.
We titled this a summer chat, and I'm kind of giggling on the inside, like we just all are always going to go back to talking about our childhood trauma, right?
Yeah.
Or not just our childhood trauma, but the aspects. So what we wanted to do today, and we'll have a part two here because I want to have more time to specifically go into where you're at and where I'm at going into the 5 year mark in the summer of 2024. And yet I know my hope is that we will inspire our listeners to maybe take some time to reflect, maybe where were you a year ago?
Mm.
Where are you at today? And are there any things like, oh, yeah, I'm noticing in this area, I feel more empowered. And that may also bring up, but this area is really still problematic for me. I'm still looking for answers on this certain aspect of my relationship.
I think maybe even more than 2 parts, Candace, because I have a few things, right, that I feel like I'm tuning into. We talked about gaslighting today and just the growing in awareness of of not feeling that and being able to make a bigger deal about my own pain or my own struggles that I'm going through, and then to have people that validate that. And so I think that's a beginning of one of the things. But yeah, I have a whole bunch of things that I've been thinking about.
No, I would love to hear more about that. As you were sharing about it when we, at the beginning, I had this thought like, share one of your gifts that I've gotten to witness personally and in group is you being able to help people know that their pain matters. And I want to say it's so specific and so authentic and so powerful. It is, I can't even explain what happens in those moments when I see you have someone slow down and say, wait a minute, can we just, pause right here and really, and that's what you've done for me. And I will say that did not lead me into whining, complaining, self pity, and getting stuck in the past. It actually helped me move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the power of love.
Yes, it is. And I love you, friend.
Yep. Love you too, Kandace.
Thank you for listening to Processing Trauma Out Loud. Make sure to check out the show notes for links to suggested resources and social media. Like, subscribe, and follow to keep up with our weekly content. And if you don't mind, take a moment to rate and review us. Your feedback is extremely valuable and contributes to the success of this podcast. One last thing. If you have found this podcast helpful in any way, or if you have questions on how to take the next steps on your healing journey, please reach out to us via email at KandaceSher@gmail.com. That's KandaceSher@gmail.com. Our sound engineer is Jeremiah Jones of Auditory LLC. We welcome you to join us for more conversations soon. Take care.